Call this meeting to order. Regular meeting of St. John Hudson Board of Education. Welcome to all visitors this evening. Thanks for your applause. Additions. Oh, they heard me.
They're locked out.
Maybe
That's
they
why
want
they
to
can't
speak.
come in.
Welcome. Okay, additions or changes to the agenda?
You'll note we do have an addition that's listed on there. That's approving our district improvement plan team, and I'll explain that when we get to that item. And then also to add an item just for presentation or discussion, I received a sample of what a consolidation resolution would look like. So I thought I would show that to you and discuss a little bit about the most recent information I've received from Stafford as of today. So those two items.
Mr. President, I move we approve the additional agenda items as reported.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda with the noted additions. All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign, 7-0. Consent agenda items, which is the minutes from the last meetings and the financial statements and warrants, which were sent to you.
They are also on your desktop if you need to refer to them.
Mr. President, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign, 7-0. Patron comments. Bring a speech with you? No? Nope, okay. Your opportunities. We'll move on to the next business items. Number 1, Kansas Teacher of the Year information.
Mr. President and Board, it's my privilege to introduce someone that doesn't really require any introduction, but we'll do it anyway. Andrea Siki, she was our Kansas Teacher of the Year candidate from St. John's, first one we've had in a while, and so she has had, I think, a really exciting and fun experience through that, and she had asked for an opportunity, and we thought it would be great for her to be able to come for you, kind of talk a little bit about, you know, the Kansas Teacher Year part, but even more a program called KEEN, K-E-E-N, which is Kansas Educator
Exemplary Educators Network.
And she's going to describe kind of what that has involved. She has hosted some other Teacher of the Year candidates also that came through here a short time back. So at this time, I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. As Dr. Kennedy said, I just felt like I should let you guys know what I've been doing with 2 different opportunities that I've had. Last year, after the sorority here in town nominated me for the Kansas Master Teacher Award through Emporia State University, I was fortunate enough to be awarded that with 6 other people here in Kansas. And the beginning of February, they asked 2 of us to go to Emporia and spend a week. And we, being me and Kathy Dusso, a first grade teacher from Dodge City, we spent 3 days talking to, I think we talked to about 15 college classes on various topics, whatever those professors asked us to have prepared for those students. A lot of introductory to education classes. I also spoke with 2 secondary reading classes, 3 different science preparatory classes. Anyway, it was a lot of work, and I'm always kind of nervous, second guess myself being away from my classroom that long, but I really felt like it was time well spent in Emporia. It was wonderful to, you know, spend time with those college students who were really excited to hear about what it was really like in schools. And having Kathy and I together was a really good mix. You know, she's from a big district, elementary, I'm from a small district, and secondary. So between the two of us, we could answer just about anything they threw at us. Anyway, so I thought it was time well spent, and I appreciate being able to be away from my classroom like that, and having, you know, good subs that will come in and take care of business for me while I'm gone. Things that I brought back from Emporia, I guess I would say networking. I met a lot of people there, professors. I also got to spend a little time at Turning Point Learning Academy there, which is a school that has middle level students, and it's all project-based learning. It's really interesting to check that school out, talk to those kids. Anyway, so that was, I felt like it was a good time and well worth my time, and hopefully the expense of a sub and me being away from my classroom. And that was kind of the end of my year of doing things for Emporia State. Now, as district nominee for Kansas Teacher of the Year, I am involved in, as Dr. Kennedy said, Kansas Exemplary Educators Network, and I'm working with a group. There are 2 teachers from Great Bend, a teacher from Dodge, a teacher from Salina, and a teacher from Cimarron, and a teacher from Hutch. And we are our little group. And lucky me, I got to host the first site visit of that, and they all came here in January on the day that was icy. So, and our city police came by and gave everyone ice scrapers, and it was very anyway. And I do so appreciate all the people that pitched in and helped make it a wonderful day. I thought here in St. John, and the other teachers were very complimentary, and I thought it went well. So far I've attended one other site visit in Hutchinson, and you know, again, I just debate these things. You know, is it going to be worth being away? You know, am I going to really get something out of it? You know, what's it going to be like? And it really was worth my while. Again, I got to meet a lot of people in Hutchinson. I got to see a lot of neat programs, you know, at work in the different schools there. And one great thing I brought home, I'm on the MTSS team here, and I brought home some like done MTSS information. I was so excited to have like cheat sheets to bring home for them. So far it definitely has been worth it. Unfortunately, due to illness, I missed the Salina visit, but I still have the Great Bend, Dodge, and Cimarron visits to go this spring. And again, it gets hard to be away, but you know, if I can bring home the kinds of things I brought home from Hutchinson, I think it is worth it. I hope it's so anyway. But again, I do appreciate the professional development phase and the opportunity to do these things and check out other schools and meet other people and make those kinds of connections here in Kansas. So anyway, like I said, I wanted to update you and say thank you. I am very appreciative. So, you guys have any questions about anything?
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, when you go to these, you bring it back to like in-service programs, or how do you work with the other teachers on some of these?
Well, you know, what I saw in Hutchinson, Martin Vieira, a first grade teacher in Hutchinson, he just took us to all kinds of different buildings and let us witness some programs they have in place. For example, one of the programs they have in place in one of the elementaries is called SMART. And a teacher would explain it, and then we'd go in and watch the kids doing it. Talk to the kids, talk to the teachers, the paras, you know, how it's working, the research behind it, what they're hoping to accomplish with it. And then again, for me, it's getting that contact person in Hutch and those teachers, and then I can come back and, for example, the SMART thing was something I thought was really cool. So immediately I talked to Teresa Miller and Julie Fox, told them what it was about, said look it up, you know, if this is something you're interested in, I know who you can call and, you know, that kind of thing. The MTSS, the multi-tiered system of support, again, we're just in the beginnings of working on that, and it's fairly overwhelming. And to go to a school who hands you like the notebook of, this is where our MTSS is, we're all done, and this is what all the forms look like and everything.
What is this? Could you explain that maybe in, I don't know if I can picture what that is exactly.
The multi-tiered system of support.
Yeah.
I really want to defer to you, Mr. Bergen, but
I'm trying to explain, see how I could explain it, if she could get a picture or not. I'm not sure she could get a picture if I
it
explained it.
is, I would say it's a way of organizing your school so that we are catching kids in the middle a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, we have all children in a group,
Yep.
and we have children with IEP in this small group, and it's these in the middle. You know, how do we serve them so that they are not falling further behind? How do we catch them before it's maybe quote unquote a problem?
That's close, yeah. I can do that.
It's also, there are some early intervention things. You identify kids early that might, you can tell are going to have difficulties, and the tiered part is the 3 levels. All kids are in the first level of what kind of programming and service you do. The second level would require that kids have a little more, for example, if they have a reading deficiency, they would get a little additional time in reading help. The third level would be very intensive. That would be for kids that have significant deficiencies, and you might even have them not do certain other classes in lieu of additional reading. For example, they might not do social studies because they're going to do a lot more reading, because not that social studies isn't important, but that foundational reading skill, if it's not there, you're going to struggle in everything. And so that's kind of the tiered approach. And we actually have a lot of those components in place at the elementary. It's some of the like the forms and the language and how we communicate it that we're getting in place. It's going to be more difficult at the high school because everybody is departmentalized and it's more content driven instead of having kids self-contained. And so, plus also when you look at the reductions we've had to make due to budget cuts and staffing, the idea of being able to have additional staff that have time to be able to offer a second or third level, it's tricky. So we do it a little bit in junior high with reading and math because we're able to have a couple extra sections with that so we can provide more, not one-on-one, but just smaller class sizes. But when you get into the high school proper, it gets real difficult.
So is it fair to, I don't know, is it a fair maybe conclusion that that might be more compatible with some of the project-based learning type of approaches that you've been
You know,
talking about?
I don't know if I could answer that right off. Again, we are just starting the process here, and personally, I'm still trying to understand it. It was just really nice to go to a school where they had already gone through the process and it was working, and talking to teachers. You know, when you go to the planning phases of something and it all seems very, I don't know if theoretical is the right word, where it's nice to actually see this is what we're doing, and a teacher talk about how this is working in their classroom. And, you know, to me, I could come back here and say, you know, okay, you know, this is going to be okay. You know, other places are doing this, and this is how it's looking, and this is, you know, maybe how it can work here. So, anyway, that was just very pertinent for something we were working on right now. So, you know, again, going into the day, not knowing if it was going to be worth me being gone, you know, again, and coming home and being able to say, yeah, I feel like it was worth the day away and bringing home something that was useful, you know, to our district right now. So.
One final thing on MTSS, it not only involves 3 different levels, it involves 3 different sort of what I would call content areas, because it does, you're supposed to have this tiering in math and reading, but also in behavioral type things. And we are able to learn and kind of borrow things from other districts on the reading and math part. Very, very few districts have done the behavioral part yet. In part, I think, just because it's difficult to do. But also they've been focusing more on the math and reading because that's where more of the impact is. So,
That's what you get tested on too.
yeah, that's the focus. So.
Anything else?
Thank you for representing our school well and to take on this additional professional development to make yourself even stronger in your classroom.
I hope so. It is hard to come back and we have fantastic subs, but yeah, not ready to teach chemistry or physics, so that is a little bit hard. But the kids, they seem to be very with it, and I appreciate them being patient with me being on too, so. Thanks. Thank you.
Mr. President, if you would indulge me, if we could rearrange or just take different items on the agenda. We're scheduled for items 2 and 3, but I see Kurt Fairchild has arrived, and so if you want to
The rest of the board,
go ahead.
all right, we'll move on forward. Come back to this.
If you'll recall, the last, perhaps 2 board meetings ago, but for sure at the last board meeting, we talked about the possibility of replacing bleachers in the north gym. This was something that we had talked about, I think, perhaps off and on in the last year and a half, whenever we talked about capital outlay things. And just kind of coincidentally, Kurt came in and visited with me just shortly before the board meeting last time when we were going to be talking about this. So I do have, and as I shared last week, I think we had some, or last month, we had some projector problems, but we've got it straightened out. So I'm going to put it on, and I can put up some designs of what we're talking about, and then we'll get Kurt up here. He had some interest that kind of matched up with some input that we got from the board last time, because the board indicated that if we could have perhaps some community involvement with that, and fundraising of some type, that might be more of a doable project.
No, you don't have to go there. Just kidding. You can go wherever you want.
No, we're skipping that. I'm going. We're skipping the show.
Yeah, I might take a seat.
It's just solid tools. Yeah. I think it'll help something. Julian, could you try the lights are up a minute? Okay. Let's see. Okay, these are just schematic drawings, but this is showing what the north side, what we, I think, sometimes think of as perhaps being like the home seats, the ones that have the backs on, would look like, and that's simply a front view. One of the things I'd point out is you'd see that they do have handicap seating areas designated over there.
How
All of
many?
these-
One?
I'm sorry?
On the far left?
Yes, on the
One?
far left, that's what that, it's actually space for 2.
2 wheelchairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of these have seat backs on them except for the top row. There's no way to put that on for those. Kind of a side view is what those look like, both folded up and then in place. And all the aisles would have these, or something similar to this, they call a P-rail. That's the north side. This is the south side. These do not have seat backs. Again, you can see there are handicap seating areas, 2 down here, 2 down here.
What do the X's represent on
I
the first
think
row?
that those may be motors
I see.
that are that move stuff in and out. And a side view of those would look like that, a little bit different handrail. If we were to do seat backs on this side, we would lose 1 row, is what they've indicated to us, because it has a little bit wider footwell to allow the seat backs to be dropped down in there, so.
So when you're going up, you step, and then you have to step back down into the seat.
Yes, that's correct. And I
This-
think
The
that's,
other side's like that too, I didn't pay
Yeah.
much attention.
yes, they are.
Is Pratt kind of like that?
Yes.
When we, okay.
Pratt are like this. If you were at Lacrosse, their seats are like this as well. There are 2 or 3 major companies that do this, and lots of different small contractors that then are representatives for those groups. Designs are all pretty much the same. There are little differences that you can do. Like these are considered, you can't tell by looking at them, but the seats are continuous seats. I mean, there are individual seat places, but you can't tell a difference if you're sitting down on exactly one seat or across one or something like that. They make ones that actually have sort of a,
Right, JUCO has that way.
oh, are those like that? Yeah.
High
so you-
school's not, but the JUCO is.
Yeah, you definitely have to sit in your spot or it would not be very comfortable. So there are little variations that can be made and stuff. This is then the upper deck, what it would look like. And I've not checked this. One of the things that, as a result of some of the stuff we're looking at right now with the fire marshal visit we had recently, is I need to go and look and see if our existing bleachers actually meet fire code on the issue of how far it is to the nearest aisle. They've not ever said anything, but they don't really go in and have you pull the bleachers out and look to see. You're only supposed to have 9 or fewer seats to the closest aisle. So like you can see here, they have a center line, so on these, there are only 7 to the nearest aisle from any direction. So little things like that. And they've not ever said anything, but I need to go check it and see what ours are. And this is just the side view of that. The one thing that's not on here that would be on here is, and they didn't put it on here so you can kind of see the view, but there would be what are called end rails for
Safety rail.
safety rail that goes across that whole side. All right. Questions about any of those designs or?
How many sections up above would independently from one another? Do they all go together the
Let me
same?
go back here. I think there's 4 sections. No, I'm sorry,
3?
just 3. Yeah, that's one section there, and that's the dividing line. One section, dividing line. One thing about these designs is the motors are located, as I said, at the bottom, and so when you activate them, they take the first row out, and then the second row doesn't start out until the first row is fully out. So you can actually, if you want, you can partially pull them out, and so if you only need 3 rows, you only have to pull 3 rows out. And they still have all of the load bearing and all that kind of stuff, even if they're only partially open.
What's the height compared to what we got?
It's almost identical.
How many seating capacity?
I haven't actually counted. Let's see, on this is the upper deck, and it says, I think it's 556 seats.
556.
Yeah, I believe that's what it says. See if I can make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's 556.
And the other
Yeah,
two sections
go back
below.
over here.
How many is upstairs now? Seats?
The entire thing you'll see about right now, somewhere around 1275, I think.
Everything?
Exactly, with everything. This is the south side, it's 271. Of course, it's kind of hard to get a good for sure count because we don't have actually divided seats up there. So this is the north side, it says 414. And that number that they're using is based upon the actual number of what they call seat sections. So, but just like with ours, if you get a big crowd and people start squeezing together, you can fit more in there. But that's what the design will look like from this vendor.
So what did you say our seating was again?
Right now,
Yeah.
roughly it's about 1275.
Versus
It's 1241,
Yeah.
not including the four wheelchair.
We don't have any wheelchair spots right now.
I know, but in the
Oh.
new plans,
Oh,
four.
that doesn't count those spots as seats.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that's just a rough estimate that we make on ours because they're just planks. So you kind of roughly figure for a person sitting there about, if you figure 18 inches, that's kind of how you arrive at that. And that's a pretty small seat. So. All right, if there's no other questions, if you can turn the lights on. I'll leave that up there in case anyone prefers it. As I mentioned, Kurt Rochow had visited with me. He came in as a community member. He'd been a board member in the past. Yeah. His prior reason for coming in, and I'll let him speak with us, I think, had primarily to do with just the safety with the bleachers. And I think he also indicated to me that he was willing to kind of work on some kind of fundraising to help make it more of a community-based type project. So I'll let you have the floor, Kurt.
Yeah, it was kind of ironic that I went and talked to Dr. Kenworthy about it, and he said, well, that's on the board agenda this month. So I had no idea that you were talking about it at all, but the main thing that I see from being in there every day, coaching and going to a lot of ball games, is a lot of times I will look, especially on the upper deck, and see that pulled out, and I'll see that gap between the two sections of bleachers like that, because it's worn out. You cannot pull them out straight. I suppose you could go back. It looks like they did a little better job at the sub-state. They probably pulled them in and out several times to finally get them straight. But I've helped after practice to pull them out. And I honestly believe you could probably pull them out at about a 30-degree angle if you wanted to. That's how worn out they are. I mean, they are crooked. And it's a big job to set up those backs and that front seat. If you've ever sat in there, that just drives me nuts to have to kick that seat, that bottom rail back in. As I was sitting there the other night in the sub-state, I had two ladies land in my lap. I was on the second row on the side, and that, I think Jerry Kinman probably put that first step in to help the elderly. Well, that first step and your second step or your third step's totally different, because they got half steps. And you know, you're walking up, you're used to steps being even. You hit that third step, and two ladies just fell right over. I mean, we caught her. She's just not used to. You're used to having the same number of steps or same distance on your steps. But the main thing I see for one game this year, I went over and sat on the south side, and I hit one that I thought I was in the St. John's swimming pool on the diving board. I mean, it went down, and my heart kind of pounded, and I thought, oh my word. you know. I don't know that it broke before the year was over, but there's been a lot of boards replaced up there. I just think it's a big liability issue. When I was in the 2nd grade is when that gym went in. And Mr. Matthews took us up on the deck. There was no bleachers in there, and we all stood up on the deck. It was in 2nd grade, and I looked across, and I thought, that has got to be the world's largest structure right there. We were really impressed, but we still call it the new gym, and it's 48 years old. You know, not too many of us are still driving a 1963 car or tractor, although I still drive 1953 trucks, but it's not in the greatest shape anymore. I wouldn't want anybody else to drive it, I'll put it that way. My idea when I talked to Dr. Kenworthy was that I would be willing to try to seek out some private funding for it. I had no idea that there was any money in capital outlay at the time. After hearing or finding out that there was, I guess my question would be how easy it would be to raise funds when people know, well, there's probably money in capital outlay, and you know how it is in St. John, everybody's going to know what's going on. You know, I'm not saying I'd much rather do it all privately, but if you didn't have any money, it might be easier, actually, is what I'm saying. Because, you know, if I go out to a farmer and I say, could you come up with a couple $1,000s for bleachers? And they say, well, I want the school pay for it. They've already got it in capital outlay. Now you're going to hit me twice. I've got to pay my taxes, and that goes into capital outlay, and now you want $2,000 for the bleachers. But anyway, I would still be more than glad to work on that and do what I could do. I think we could raise some money that way to help. And I do know it would probably, to some in the community, it would probably sell better if you did raise some of it privately, and I would be willing to work on that if you'd want me to. But that's kind of what I see. I think new bleachers would be a lot cheaper than somebody falling through that crack in the upper deck, or falling through a board. During the prom parents tournament, it was kind of funny. Were you around there, Mike, when that kid fell through on the north side and was screaming? Nobody knew he was in there.
No, I wasn't there then.
I looked over there and Ron Richardson pushed the bleachers back in. Out comes this kid screaming. He'd fallen through there. Nobody knew he was in there, but he got through, but he couldn't come back out. But anyway, anymore they don't like bleachers that you can fall through like that. That's. But I'd be, you know, I would be. If you directed me to do something like that, I'd be willing to go out and see what we could do. So yeah, I'd like to. I've talked to some other people, and they would be interested in doing it with me, and everybody. I kind of, as I had a list of names, the people that I thought maybe were the least interested or more skeptical, I asked them what they thought, and I was kind of amazingly shocked that said, I think that'd be a great idea. I'd be willing to help you, or willing to see if I could find some friends to raise some money too. So I think we could do some good. But like I said, that was kind of before I knew that the school had money available. That might put a little different perspective on it.
Questions anyone has or discussion?
I don't know if this is the best time to bring it up if you have something else. But one of the fair board members had been researching improved bleachers for the fairgrounds, and had, they operate on a far smaller budget, had been trying to explore some options there, and had come across a website on used bleachers that they actually found some on Wish that they bought and didn't, but an aside. I checked it out, and it has the kinds of bleachers on there that we're talking about, of course, used. And I don't know if that's something we might consider, but they're $100,000 less. And here's part of my thinking on it. I'm concerned that even though we have money in capital outlay right now, the kind of legislative landscape that I'm looking at now that has suggested in some cases that we already allow capital outlay to pay salaries, I'm worried that in the next couple of years, that's what we're going to be directed to use to keep a lot of the operations going. And I'm not, I mean, I want to invest in the things that we need to keep our school going, but if there's maybe a way we could accomplish that in a more economical way, still have something that is modern, safe, improved, I don't know, it may be an option to at least consider.
I did, Carolyn had given me information on this used bleachers website, and I did go in there and look at it, and they did have one set of bleachers that were similar to what we'd be looking at, and the price was $40,000. We would have more cost than that, putting them in, because
Right. Getting them here.
yeah, well, actually, I think they said they would deliver them, so I don't think we'd have a delivery cost, but getting them to fit our space would require some modifications. It's a small thing, but we would have the aesthetics thing to deal with. Our school colors are blue, and these bleachers are red.
Right, yeah, and I think it's the kind of thing you have to kind of watch the inventory, because there was one there that, right, they were, obviously the red won't do, but there were others there that had already sold that were kind of a tan
Why are they
color.
getting rid of them, would be one question I would have.
Absolutely, I'd want to check into any of them too. I mean, the one of them that was the red when they were from College Station in Texas.
I think
Just
they were,
schools with lots of money.
I think they were 12 years old, and they would probably just replace them. I don't know for what reason, maybe
I
for
don't
seat
either.
backs
I
or
mean,
something.
I didn't
but-
call them and
Yeah.
ask about any particular offer, but
What do you think about some of these schools in Mays and Goddard that they just keep building new schools and new schools? Maybe some of those they're closing down one school and building a new one to make it bigger, so maybe that's where these bleachers are coming from. So,
Did you find a place to sell our used lumber?
Well,
well, probably
I'm
in
sure
a
there's
place that we
places.
want to put some time into it.
that same site, you can sell the lumber on it. There's also another place back east that buys bleacher lumber like that. They don't use it for bleachers, but they do it for other purposes. So there are at least a couple places that I found. Yeah. I don't know if we
you
would
take the
have-
metal to Acme and
Yeah, scrap that out.
And here's, I don't know, where my mind goes. At the beginning of the year, we discussed this a bit, the possibility, but, you know, we have kids well, they just finished it, that do fundraising, and it's directed toward a worthy cause, but it's not local. And if we might, and we also had a community foundation that expressed a willingness to work with us, that if we wanted to direct our children's fundraising into something that built our own community, they would match it. Maybe this is the time maybe this is the kind of local need that we have that people could get interested in. And, you know, if that were the case, given how much money the kids raised for Jump Rope for Heart, you know, we'd be halfway there on used bleachers, you know. I think they raised $7,500 or something like that. Maybe not quite, it wouldn't be quite halfway there, but suddenly we're looking at a lot less that we're being asked to. I'm still concerned about being conservative at a time when we may need those funds for operational purposes and, you know, in the next 2 or 3 years. And we're also talking about consolidation on one hand, and it seems kind of incongruent, even though I know we're not talking about consolidation in the vein of closing a school immediately, but it does seem to me that you are setting forth a glide path to doing that in the immediate term, if we go that direction. So
When you put in used furniture, is there guarantees? Do they list a guarantee with that?
the warranty or
Yeah,
some sort.
warranty. Is there a warranty with that used stuff? As long as
I would
Doing
guess
that.
not.
I just feel like, you know, over the years, the boards have put in quality schools, quality buildings, and we need to put quality furniture in, and I would like to do it first rate, the right way the first time. That place is not only a basketball venue, but it's a commencement venue, it's a music venue, it's used for so many different facets, and I think it's kind of a staple of this community in the sense that consolidation or no consolidation will be used for years to come, and I just like to see it first rate. I'd hate to see us, and I understand the idea of conservatism, but on the other hand, it'd have to be just the perfect match and warranties or something. And if you put in a, does a company put it in versus if we put it in, and a liability, something breaking, who stands behind it? If the company puts it in, they've got to stand behind it versus if we put it in. So I think there's a lot of issues with that too. Things to consider.
Did you ever, have you ever mentioned the price of the bleachers are?
Yeah, we've not received bids, all we've had is estimates. The ones that I just showed you, they said, for estimate, they said doing all of them would be about $130,000 to $135,000. That's their estimate. They said the bid, usually when they're bidding it, you can expect it to be about 5% less. So
And that's turnkey, everything?
that would be taking everything out and putting new in. So if we were to have people that would, in the community, that would, volunteer to come in and take the old ones out, which would be, I think, fairly doable, that would take a significant amount off. They haven't told me how much, but I can find that out. But that would take a significant amount off of that.
And what type of warranty have they set with these?
Yeah. I will send you all the specifications. They're about 7 or 8 pages. And I think it specifies the warranty on it. So, 9 pages or so.
Probably has it all broken down with the motors and everything.
It has all of the building codes and stuff like that that have to be involved.
So when you talk about like the handicap, we'd have to do that anyhow, wouldn't we? ADA,
Anytime.
when you change something, because we're grandfathered in right now. So.
Yes, that's correct.
When they would bid that, they would actually look at our facility and make sure everything.
They actually already have come out and measured everything, so they wouldn't have to come back for anything. Because they are, it's almost like they're a distributor, they're not the manufacturer. So what they would do is, they're giving us our estimate, what they think it would be. They would actually send all the specifications into the plant, and they would find out from the plant what it actually was going to cost. So they tend to kind of overestimate a little bit so that they don't end up surprising a buyer. Right now we have 2 different companies, and I could request actual bids from them. Thus far, they've just given me estimates, but I haven't requested bids because that involves more people on their end and time, and I didn't want to put them into that if we weren't actually looking at moving forward with something.
Well, I think if we could combine private funds and capital outlay somehow, and get some sort of, I don't know if you could say balance, and community involvement, I think if people take some ownership in the facility too, with private funds, that would be really great.
Some kind of fundraising, we would look at having some sort of a plaque or something, at the entrance to the gym or something like that, recognizing those that have contributed. we can do kind of similar, I think, what they're, maybe not quite as extravagant, but they have recognition wall down there in City Park for all those people that contribute funds for upgrading the park and benches and things like that. So, we definitely do something like that for those folks.
So Carol, you thinking that Kurt needs to see what type of pledges?
You bet,
we
that's what I'm
get,
thinking.
and
Especially with the networking that you do, you know, as a farmer.
He doesn't get out much.
Oh, farmers talk,
Get out.
don't they? So, yeah,
Everybody will know what you're doing by tomorrow morning. so.
yeah.
Well, it's right there.
The only thing is, it would be better, in my, I could sell things a lot better if I knew what you wanted. What
You mean like a dollar amount one?
yeah, or if you were gonna go through with it if we didn't raise very much, or, you know. I mean, how would you go out and present that to people? That's why I said, to me, it was almost easier if I was doing the whole thing myself.
Go
With
ahead.
this, no, I don't. But we can't, the cat's already out of the bag on that, that the money's there, that's the problem.
Well, I mean, it's there, but yet it's not really there because of what's coming ahead.
They already know that it's there, all right.
But they've also, they've got to understand that you can't just go out and spend everything and then in the next year let go of something because you didn't keep that money held back.
Yeah, I mean, I could go out and try it that way. I just, in my own mind, playing it through, I don't think that'll work quite as well as if
I think
you
it's
just said there's no
pretty-
way we're gonna
pretty
get
moment, a pretty big plateau to even get to 100, I don't know.
That'd be
Can I
extraordinary.
just throw a big?
I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, I
Keep
don't-
moving.
50% of the project doable in your estimation? I'm just trying to get off the center here.
In time, yeah, but not in time for next year, probably.
Well, maybe we can make it an ongoing thing and,
Do we go out to the
You know,
businesses and the public when we need a new roof on the building? Or when we need new concrete on the approach on the north side, do we go out and raise money that way? No. We use capital outlay for building improvements. And to me, this is no different than a roof or concrete out in front, or if we need a parking lot that we need to clear off to improve the school district. That's what it's there for. And if the public can't see that, then I don't know.
We upgraded the bleachers, which we needed to up at the football field, right? That was done with capital outlay.
It was a huge improvement.
That was to the tune of about 25, 30.
40.
I look at it differently now that I'm a grandpa, and I've got little ones running up there, and if they fall through, I'd feel sick if something happened to anybody, child. And I am extremely surprised that hasn't happened. I'm sure it has, it just has turned out good.
Yeah.
Oh, my own son, he bloodied his mouth and ended up.
Did he fall to the ground?
No, and I mean, I'm not an alarmist, I mean, we all live through those
Sure.
things. But it happens.
And how many of us have dropped things that ended up below that we sent some little kid down to get? Probably, there isn't a person in here that hadn't dropped stuff down to the floor.
That's a money-making project.
Here's a dollar if you go get my coat.
During the sub-state tournament, I had some time, and I went up on the deck and crawled underneath the upper bleachers. And started twisting on them and looking at them, and there's no loose bolts anywhere. There are no loose bolts, and this is what I'm hearing some of the public say, well, just go tighten the bolts. There's no bolts to tighten. They run on sliders, on I-beam sliders, and there's this much play in those. And, they're just wearing out after 48 years.
Yeah, I've sent the junior high kids out there to pull them out sometime. Whoa! I mean, so many people have pulled them out over the years. that don't pull them out evenly, it's just hard to believe there's that much play in it. But this way, we won't be tempted to pull them out if you have them price. Because they can be, there's a right way to pull them out evenly, and there's a wrong way.
I have one opinion on this board, and that is to do it right the first time, and to use capital outlay money to do it.
The
If
difference-
we're gonna do it, let's do it right.
The difference that I see between pouring cement and the bleachers is that the public sits, I mean, they use those, they walk on those, they want them to be comfortable, they want them to be safe. I mean, the public spends a lot of time on those bleachers. I mean, they use that. So that's the difference I see between that and something else they might not notice or might not see. They might be a lot more willing to donate money for something they use and they see their family use, 2 nights a week than the cement out front.
Well, if we wouldn't, I mean, you can always give the option for people to donate to anything, and let's just throw it out there and see what we get, and then we'll just finish it off with the capital outlay. But, I mean, I don't know if we necessarily have to say you need to raise $60,000 or something like that before we're gonna do it. I don't know. But I think there's people out there, like Kurt said, that would probably go ahead and give it.
But I think you have to have a need. Like I said, when I came into Dr. Kenworthy, I had no idea there was any, maybe a zero balance, and I thought the only way we're gonna do this is private funding. It'd be a tough job, but I think we could do it. But that isn't the case, and it's gonna be a hard sell. I think it's gonna be a harder sell now than it would have been if there was zero balance in capital outlay.
Well, I hope
I'll
nobody
try-
thought that we
I'll
were out
try.
there with a zero balance in capital outlay. My gosh, that would look very good for the board.
So so do you want like
Huh?
a goal?
If the board would say, I move we put 80,000 of capital outlay in it, if we can raise 50,000 publicly, well then I gotta go out and say, hey, we're not gonna get new bleachers unless we can raise $50,000. That would be, they'd know what we had to shoot for.
Oh, okay, I see what
That if people knew what the need was, it's a lot easier to raise money than if it's just kind of ambiguous.
And I think that also tells it kind of would help us understand if the community's really buying into maintaining the facilities or not, But the problem is we probably should have acted on this in the fall. It's kind of an urgent need in order to, we can get bids, and I guess we can find out where we're at, but.
happen overnight anyway, fundraising.
One thing I don't want to do is send out letters and get $5, $10, $15 back a little bit at a time. I talked to Dr. Kenworthy. I'd rather go around, meet with a group of people that I think would be willing to do it, and maybe put a notice in the paper so that nobody felt left out, and raise larger sums of money at one time. I'm not looking for an 8 to 5 job for 5 months, sending letters out for $5 at a crack or something like that.
So,
Whatever we spend out of the capital outlay, what I was gonna say, Barb, was that, there for a year or two, did we not add any to the capital outlay?
We had
One or 2 years or something?
Yeah, they were not contiguous with each other, but we had 2
Right,
years.
and so, I was just thinking, you spend it, you're gonna have to replace it. So it would have been a matter of, you're gonna raise the mills on that to replace it. If you had the money there, you wouldn't have to, you could be to a point where you didn't have to raise the mills to replace what you spend. You're gonna collect taxes on it, get it back, and spend it. If it's there, you don't have to have a mill or 2 mills or whatever it is.
There has to be several tons of steel there for salvage, for somebody. It's a matter of getting it off,
Yeah.
Getting it off.
labor intensive, getting it off.
I was gonna say, we had Acme bring big old dump bins out to our farm, and they hauled it down and hauled it back up, and so,
Yeah, did you mean like cutting
Yeah,
all that
cutting it
stuff
down.
like that? I mean,
Make sure you got
because
your
you're gonna build it towards
smoke
the gym.
detectors and everything operational so that we can evacuate timely.
I don't, it doesn't,
Spark.
it doesn't require any torching to get them out.
Well, that takes the fun out of it.
I think you may have been down there last summer watching them take the ones out at Pratt. We were down there watching
Yeah.
volleyball, I think.
Yeah.
They were doing it with just one guy, so I think we could probably do better than one person.
Do we give Dr. Kenworthy direction here?
Well, I think that, well, I don't know what kind of target you want, Kurt, but I would say go for it. I don't know what kind of dollar amount to tell you to shoot for, or what about time limit you want? You definitely want some, I mean, what kind of time limit should we be?
I mean,
Timeline on
if we're looking at wanting to do this during the summer, I think we probably need to have some sort of decision by 1st of May to be able to meet some timeline. And that's just an estimate, I'm not sure. The vendors, how long they think. What would the board think of giving Kurt the goal of a third? If we consider that we're going to save some on removing the bleachers ourselves, save some on salvaging the wood and the metal, and being very conservative on that, if that got us down to $120,000 to raise $40,000 privately.
You could try that.
That gives you a target to
Right,
shoot at.
that'd help.
The board be comfortable with that?
Do you need action to solicit bids?
Oh, no, I don't. I can solicit bids. Okay.
Would it be all right then for me to put something in the paper saying that the board would pay for it if we can raise $40,000 privately? I mean, there's no motion on that. Is it agreeable if I say that?
I don't know if the word "if" is appropriate. Maybe
If we-
towards.
Well, that put a little pressure on people to come up with some
Maybe
money.
there's a way to say that we are challenged to raise $40,000, but for the school board to match, or something to that effect. As a,
Double our match. We ought to be able to get it for 120 easy enough by, that'd be pretty. Okay. Try to have that done by the 1st of May.
Okay then.
All right. I'll be visiting all of them.
All you need is 8 people give them $5,000.
I figured that all up before. It's a lot easier figuring 40 than it is 130.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
We're gonna move on
you have a file, it's called 2011-12 school year prototype. Just a quick update, calendar committee has met and looked at this. The only, what I would call significant modification that they were suggesting was looking at the possibility of starting school after Labor Day. This calendar shows school starting on the 29th of August. So that would start school on the 6th of September and would require us to go an extra week in May. It still gets us out before Memorial Day. The only other things that we talked about were little things like possibility of moving a couple of professional development days from a Monday to a Friday. But that was just a suggestion from one staff member. The committee hasn't actually looked at that seriously at this point. I think there's still more people interested in having those days on Friday than Monday. That was the suggestion, move it from Friday to Monday. So thoughts from the board on the late start?
Did we have this discussion last year?
I think so.
It doesn't look significantly different to me than last
Yeah.
year.
This calendar is basically corresponding dates to our current calendar.
Moving it back, they were
Ball
discussing,
games after or before.
well, they have that
you're even
volleyball
starting
match
school.
before. But some of the teachers were worried the kids would have lost. I remember that.
Football practice starts.
15.
One thing about school being in session during state track,
Yeah.
you miss one,
Yeah, that's true.
miss one sport at the beginning, but you finish the sport at the end.
Yeah, track, state
Track.
track never gets any recognition after, so.
And I'm just I'm just advising you tonight. You don't get to make a decision tonight. But that's the primary change that was suggested. And so, unless you have other things you want us to look at, what we'll do is we'll put together those two calendars options, get some more feedback from staff, and then we'll bring it back to you next month for approval of one of the two.
Okay.
We're ready for legislative update.
I don't know how many of you get the opportunity or take the time to read through the updates that we get from KESB. There are just a whole flurry of bills that are currently running through related to education, and so the one that has received a lot of activity in terms of people corresponding with legislators is House Bill 2310. This is a bill that would basically change how the current retirement and rehiring process works. School districts currently can hire back someone who has retired. This is similar to what we did with Mr. Losey this year. But we have one other person who we're currently doing that with as well in the district. This bill would basically, anybody whose contract wasn't multi-year would be prevented from continuing on that way. What I have heard as of today is that this bill probably won't make it out of committee, but it's hard to tell. The primary issue, I think, is not that doing away with all the people in the state that are doing this, it won't save the state any money. The state actually gains money as a result of them doing that, because the rate for capers deductions for someone who is not retired is about 16%, 6 or 8 or something like that, pretty close. But for someone who is retired, it's
20.48%.
yeah, and it's gonna go, I think the way the law is written right now, at some point it jumps to 25%. So the state actually is doing better on those. The reason for this bill is there's a perception out there, someone doesn't like the perception that people are retired and still working. And so that's where that's at. But you may hear about that particular bill. There's also a couple of other bills related to capers that would change the percentage of deductions that people get taken out of their check for capers. The reason about all this discussion about capers is because from an actuarial or math standpoint, capers is not solvent right now. It's not out of money, but I think estimates are that by 2025, it could be. And so they're trying to take steps to correct that. The state has not fully funded capers as they should. For sure over the last 2 years, and prior to that, they even were kind of shorting it a little bit, and they had made some bad investments that lost money and some things like that. So there's a lot of attention being focused on this, because it's a problem that will only grow worse. And Kansas is not the only state that's in this situation. You probably have read or heard about other states that are in similar situations. Kansas is actually, from in the grand scheme of things, is probably better off than a lot of states. Because there are some states that currently their public employees' retirement systems are already basically bankrupt. So we're a long ways from that, but the state is, there's a lot of attention to try to correct that situation. So another bill that's out there that could be highly controversial, there's a bill, and I don't have, I was looking here, I could find the number, but I can't right now. It's a bill that would change the distance that we can transport kids from another district. Currently, for us to transport a student from another district, they have to live more than 10 miles from their home school and closer to the school they want to attend. If they meet those two requirements, and they fill out a piece of paper by July 15th, we can go get them, and the other district can't say anything about it. After July 15th, the other district has to approve us doing that. And we do have a handful of kids that we do have attending here in that way. The bill that's being run through would change that mileage to 2.5 miles, which means any kid that lived more than 2.5 miles from their home school could be picked up by another district who wanted to come in and get them. That starts creating real bad feelings between districts, because suddenly it's like a competition thing, and you have districts starting to make deals and promising special treatment or things like that if you'll come to their district. KSB is not endorsing that bill, but it's still out there. So, there's a couple bills that don't affect us because we don't get any state aid for capital outlay or bonded interest, because we're seen as being on a per student basis having too high of assessed valuation per student. So it wouldn't affect us, but there are some districts that are petitioning to try to get legislation through that would cause the state to fund that again the way they did prior to the economic downturn. So. And then the final thing, there are many others, but the major one, the House and Senate have both passed legislation to try to solve the current end-of-year funding shortage. And the It's been passed out of both houses, House and Senate. It's in the compromise committee, and they basically are deadlocked. They have not been able to move forward with it. And what I saw today indicated that there may not be a lot of movement either way. If either one of those gets through in some form, what will essentially happen is they will borrow money from the CAPERS payment that they're supposed to make in this school year to end the year in the positive. And then immediately after we get into July, they will then take the money from school funds and repay CAPERS. So that squares things on the books, but instead of us getting reduced by $157 per student for next year, it would be closer to $197 per student, about another $40 more. So that's the big one. If the Senate and House compromise committee can't reach some kind of agreement, the thing will basically just die, and the governor has authority to make executive reductions wherever he deems necessary to make it work. So they end with in the blue or the black. They can't end in the red. So, questions about any of that? Okay.
Item 5, financial report.
On your computer desktop, there is a PDF file called February Financial Statement. It shows the budgets and balances in February. Things are basically on track where they should be this time of year. I would bring to your attention again, we do have, you can see there, utilities, electricity. It's only showing $134 left there. We already have, we have money budgeted at LOB to offset what the rest of the electricity is. That was just a small part of what we need for that. But everything else is on track. And then also on your desktop there is a file called February 2011 Balances. It's a Word document, and you can see what our unencumbered balances are through the end of February. For some of you, if you're comparing one of them on there on the bond fund, it is slightly less than last time because we did have an interest payment that we made out of there. That was about $15,000. So.
Added agenda items.
The first added agenda item, we're trying to be ahead of the game here. There's a process that if you don't make AYP 2 years in a row, you're placed on improvement. And we received information a couple weeks ago that said if we wanted to, we could kind of jump into this process early and do something called an improvement plan. But we had to kind of rush through it because there are certain deadlines you have to hit. Otherwise, you just have to wait. But there are some advantages if we had this in place. So we're pulling it together.
What are the advantages of having it in place?
The state can already have looked at it and approved it, and so you don't have to have that issue once you get into the fall. Quite frankly, at some point, probably every school is going to be on improvement because I don't know anybody that's going to be able to hit 100% on the assessments in, what is it, 3 years. Before
Yeah,
2014.
2014.
So once you do it now, even if there were a subsequent year when you didn't make it, this plan is still,
that once you have your plan, you're good to go. So, and the reason we didn't make AYP in elementary math is we had too many kids take the modified assessment. If we had known that that would cause us problems, we probably would have done that, but that's where we're at. So, our hope is we've corrected that we will make AYP. If we don't though, we will need to have a plan, so the idea is to get this in place.
project some assumption of failure, I guess, unless
Well-
you look at it that in 2 years we'll probably be doing it anyway, but.
Well, that percentage just keeps going up, and it's just harder and harder every year to reach that.
Especially when you're students.
Anyway, the small piece that we're asking the board to do tonight is we have to have what's called an external technical assistance team, and the board has to approve them. For our purposes, the external technical assistance team can be people that are in our district that aren't in the elementary. If the entire district were on AYP, then we'd have to have a different type of technical assistance team. But for our purposes, what we would like to do is have the board approve myself, Mr. Bergen, Sheila Witt, Dick Smith, and then Michelle Flaming, who is an elementary math specialist at ESDAC, to have them approved as our external assistance team.
You need a motion on
Yes, please.
that? I move that we approve that plan as presented.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the plan as Dr. Kennery presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 7-0.
Thank you.
Item number 2.
On your computer desktop, you'll see a file that is called consolidation forms. And as we're looking at these, I will update you on where we're at with conversations with Stafford. Carol Long and I went to their board meeting in February and presented. After that meeting, it was about a week before we got some feedback, and basic feedback we got was that they sort of wanted to wait and see what might be going to happen with school finance. I think they still are at that point a little bit, but I sent a copy of this to Dr. Taylor and wanted to show it to our board to be able to communicate to them, as our board in general still interested in having this type of discussions. Possibly the idea of do we need to invite them or have some sort of a joint meeting with them to talk through this. I mean, we are looking at a tight time window to still do this, but it still could be done. And I will provide you with copies of this if you wish to look at it. A lot of it is what I would call just kind of legalese. But the one of the parts that I would direct you to that probably is most crucial, and we've already talked about this, it talks in here about boundaries and things like that. Those things are all easy to establish. But one of the things would be how an election would occur, because as they've indicated, you can do a combined voter majority, so that means everybody between the two districts votes. If you get a majority between the two, then it goes. Or a majority of each of the districts, where you have to get a majority in each area. So that's one of the significant decisions that would have to be made. The other, and I'm on page 3 of 4. And this was information that was new to me. I had not been told this. This has to do with appointing members to the interim board. My understanding was that both boards had to appoint members to the interim board, and that somehow you just figured out which board was going to get the fourth member. There is a second way on here that if you look there. Each board can select 3 members for a total of 6, and then the interim board can select 7, which may be easier. I don't know. And like I said, we may not even be going this direction, but that was a significant difference for me. And then finally, as we've talked about, just how the indebtedness will be handled, whether it's combined or kept separate. That is essentially all of the components that are in the resolution. Anything else, I mean, you could put additional things in there, but in general, that's what most of them look like. Other types of issues are just worked out by the interim board for things to happen. So I guess my question at this point is, does our board still have interest in looking at this?
Not if they're on a wait and see attitude. I'm not.
That's how it's described to me, but I don't want to mischaracterize.
I don't want to come across as being pushy in any way as well in this. And if they're on a wait and see, if that's accurate, then anything we do from here on out is a push towards that.
Dr. Taylor shared with me that they had one board member, there's an individual, they weren't acting, it wasn't a vote or anything like that on their part, but they had one board member that was interested in knowing whether we had or were going to take a vote to do something. But that wasn't a direction from the entire board or anything like that.
Well, we've done what we can as far as presenting it.
They know the financial gain as well as we do. We do it before the timeline.
Would it be, would the board approve or allow Carol and I to meet again with their board president, superintendent? My concern is that if it's 2 groups that are sitting and waiting to see what the other one's going to do, the vote's just going to sit there. If our board just has no interest, has decided that that's not the direction we want to go, then that's a different deal. But if it is something that you as a board are interested in looking at, I would not want it to die from the lack of good communication and presentation. And so, without voting, is it something just kind of by consensus that our board is still willing to look at, to talk about?
Do we have to look at it as only within the time frame of this year, or do we look at it as setting the stage for a time period in, the next year where we have more opportunity to educate the public as to why we are arriving at the decisions we are?
You can do that, and as we've already talked about, you'll use some of the financial advantages. The law current law expires at the end of June, and then reverts back to, there is a previous law that is underlying behind it that guarantees 3 years. But the kind of sense of urgency right now is you're going to be locking in 3 years at $197 plus $75 less.
But at the end of that, what happens with low enrollment funding money that we get, that we lose then because we're a bigger school?
You mean as far as the low enrollment weighting?
Yeah.
There would be a little bit of difference there at the end, but compared to what you're losing over the course of 3 or 4 years, it's insignificant, so.
I did never know what a dollar amount was.
Yeah. I mean, I can look up and see what the percentage change would be on the low enrollment weighting formula.
It concerns me a little bit that Dr. Taylor hasn't given you a firm picture of what they're thinking over
Yeah, I don't know that she has been given a
Well, that
firm picture,
there.
so.
Should be her job to figure that out. And you two visit and bring back to your boards. Seems to me like.
Well, it don't seem like they wanna do anything, so.
Nothing we have to do.
I think they do what we do, so.
I think where Dr. Kenworthy is from is that he doesn't want this opportunity window to pass us by if it's something that's gonna work in our district in there. Because it is a substantial amount of money to be gained or lost. And I appreciate his efforts in doing that.
So do you think that we, meeting another time with Dr. Taylor and board president would be, well, I agree, I don't want to be pushy, and yet if we,
What I would hope out of a meeting like that would simply be to have a solid answer.
okay.
I mean, if the only information I can get right now is through Dr. Taylor, and I think, like I said, I don't know that she's been given solid direction. And we can at least know for sure where we're at.
Well, I'm not sure that you've been given solid direction.
And that's part of my question, in asking where this board is on that.
Well, my personal opinion is that we should pursue it, but that's been obvious from the beginning, so. Bill?
My vote is no.
Can we get you to say your position now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I still stand by the fact that I just hate to rush this. I think, that in due time, things are gonna happen, but I still wanna push it in front of the public. At the last minute, I don't think they're ready for it yet. So I'd say not at this time.
That's my opinion, not at this time.
I'm also not at this time.
So does that mean that you don't want to even plan for something into the future? If we're taking off,
You can do that.
if we're taking the June 30th option off the table, but wanting to continue to talk to them, to plan.
Yeah, because we need to get started if you think something like that might happen down the road, because we need to be talking.
And I still think we should, and you know, I mean, if we're gonna continue talking with them, I still think we should continue including Maxville and
I
let
think so
them
too.
continue either telling us no or whatever it is that they're gonna do, but I think we should, you know, be open to the whole thing and not just keep shutting the door on one side or the other, so.
We were looking at budget cuts for next year, 95,000 roughly.
Yeah, roughly. That was when it was $157 per kid. Now it's $197.
And so
I
that,
can figure another
that has
25.
been blackened and worse.
Yeah, a little bit. There's an article which I will send to you. I think it's out of Topeka paper. Senator Brattle, who I believe is from the Kansas City area, he has taken it almost kind of a personal mission to try to educate greater public about the impending problems in their city. The numbers that he is giving out is that for next year, adjusted for inflation, we will be spending less on schools per kid than we did in 1992. And the projections he also is giving is that that's not the bottom. He has a pretty, in a way, almost kind of a negative view on it. Obviously, he's been in some meetings where he's heard some things said that I think cause him concern because I think he apparently has heard some people say that Kansas ought to get out of the education business. This is conversations he's had with other legislators, and that we shouldn't be paying for school education. I think there are those who would say it all gets pushed back on the local districts and areas, and I think a lot of kids lose in that type of system. So, here, and this is not necessarily consensus, but I'm hearing that the board would like to continue having discussions and possible planning on some of this, for sure with Stafford, and if we can get Maxville to engage in it to do that. Would that be something that the boards would want to do relatively soon? Understanding that we're not going to hit the June 30 possibility.
The only thing that really concerns me is this Stafford County thing gonna just be the Band-Aid? I mean, should we be talking to a bigger school and being a satellite district of theirs or something? I don't know. I mean, is that what it's gonna lead to? Is that we're gonna be all satellites? I've read that several times, and
Depending
so
on,
are we just putting a Band-Aid on the regulation and then?
I don't know. My crystal ball is pretty foggy.
You know, that's,
I don't know. My opinion is that you talk how much talking today doesn't mean a whole lot until you know what the next final numbers are gonna be, and then people's gonna be willing to basically you got another year then to go, okay, we can live or we're gonna die and we're gonna struggle, whatever the case is. And, you got that amount of time to do your talking, but until you're getting to that point, is what if,
Well,
even
here,
what if all day long.
Yeah.
here's my concern is what you're describing to me. We actually started this process for us back in late October, starting to have these conversations and providing information and trying to get staff engaged with this thing in January. My reason for having the idea of some sort of a joint meeting with them even if we're not going to hit the June target, if we are looking at something in the future, we need to continue with what momentum we have and continue having these discussions. If we say, well, we're just going to wait until we see what the new numbers are, those always come not until January, February, March, and then we're again in the situation of being too late. Or saying that we should be able to handle this. I would disagree. I think the public can handle that kind of information. I think we can have meetings that would educate them quickly enough that they would understand it. But some of you know the public better probably. So I guess at this point, what I would like is some direction, either to stop or to continue discussions with Stafford, because I feel like I owe them that.
I have a willingness to continue as long as we still have the same willingness on the other side to continue.
Yeah.
I'm not as abrupt as some of them may be on it. I'm not gonna shut the door on it.
And part of it is, I think if we shut the door, it'll be for good, because they won't talk to us again. Some of them feel like we already shut the door on them once in the last year or so.
It can be hard to get a consensus on either board.
Yep. So would this board be willing to meet with them at some point in the near future? I'm not saying a set date, but with the purpose of just talking about what the future holds for both of us, or all three of the county schools, and get Maxville involved.
Keeping an open mind and gosh, man.
Okay. Are you willing to go with me to
Yeah.
carry that message? Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I just don't wanna lose that momentum that, because it's an endless number game.
Yep.
I mean, it's always gonna change.
At this point, like I said, school finance, anytime you can get information that's further than a year out, you're just lucky. And the stuff I've seen the last couple of days, they're projecting we're just going to continue sliding downhill for the next couple of years. So
To me, the problem, and it's a simple issue of representation, that is what is pushing the brakes on. Who's going to have the representation?
And that's why I was, in a way, kind of glad to see that there was an option there.
Because it can't be split 50-50.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to get, it'll never be equal. It'll never be fair for all.
And the part that is kind of ironic to me is underlying that, quite frankly, and I'll say this out in public, is that it's a lack of trust. And yet, probably everybody on this board knows people personally on the other board and would trust them with all kinds of stuff. And yet, for this, it's like, it's a sticking point because there's that underlying fear that someone will try to do the other way.
Well, there's actually only one winner out of consolidation. Kids.
No.
Well, the town that gains the school, that has the majority of people, is the winner in the public's perception. But the problem is they don't see that kids can benefit by having a better education with a little larger of a school, so you can have more to offer. I mean, it's hard for the public to see that's the key concept of the whole thing. And we have, and rightfully so, a business owner in the town that will lose a school might feel slighted. And so that's a hard thing to deal with.
Well, a few parents have talked to me about this. a lot of them are thinking about, like, you talk about the improvement of education if we band together and stuff, and they're thinking on their kids going to college, they would like to see somehow getting more college dual credits and things like that to help them cut down on their college expenses and things like that. If this consolidation would go, is that gonna help them? And there's had a couple of them said, you know, if there is something that happens, we just might go ahead and just take them to a larger school so they are gonna benefit what we want for our children. So, you know, that's what, if we're talking about really doing something for the students,
Yeah, that's, I wasn't even thinking about the dual credits. I was just thinking about the programs that we have now, and just sustaining
Yeah.
those. Because there's a lot more to education than just.
so I mean, that's what the future, that's why, do we need to just put a Band-Aid on what it is right now, or do we really need to explore what's really gonna be out there and what we can do to benefit our students of Stafford County as a whole, Maxwell, all of them.
Well, that's my thought of utilizing the dollars while you can get them, because the legislature's gonna take them away. It's just, you can see the history of it, the dollars are getting less and less, and that number is extremely important at 4,062 or whatever.
4012.
4,012 number is important, because next year it could be 37 or 36 or 35. And if you happen to do anything after that, it's how you gonna raise it. Only way you're gonna raise it is local option. Yep. And sorry to say, but the state legislature controls that purse. And I'm just trying to, I think, yeah, don't we have bright enough minds that we can begin this thought process now? Or
Well, I agree, I think we need to continue and everything else,
I'd like to even say if the dialogue would improve the dialogue, to see if we can consolidate funding to secure funding. You know, it doesn't mean you close buildings for 5 years. Even after 5 years, you don't have to close. At least you're consolidated. You'd have a board, hopefully, that we could come up with a board that would work together. I don't know, my thought is that I think we're losing out on funding that will
Well,
lost.
but then you listen to some of these schools that have consolidated, and they used the money to sustain, they didn't build anything off of it, because they had to keep that money saving, so when they come out of that 4-year thing and they get bombarded with no money because of the 4 years gap, they just sustained, they didn't really improve or what. That's what some of the parents are telling me, is that why do we want to just sustain it when we can go elsewhere and improve?
Well, I'm
What?
saying is
That's
the
what I'm
process
getting
that
at.
maybe that option would be to bring buildings together, but at least you secured some funding for 5 years to think it through, and maybe it happened in 2 years. You don't know what that interim board would do. Yeah, there's lots of questions to be answered. I don't know the answer. I just know that I think kids are missing the boat today by what we're offering in small schools. And as we face budget crunches, the numbers in classes are going to dictate who you keep, programs you keep. Anything else? Okay. Communications. Start with Mr. Losey.
Did you paint the front of this?
My fingers aren't working very well. You know, I dropped a gallon of milk at Dylan's today. You were asking the wrong person.
Sorry. Next time I'll start down here with Mitch. Chart at the top there, of course, is our enrollment chart, and we have increased some students. We did get word today that we do have a fifth grader who is transferring, so we'll actually be at 173. I put the results of our sixth graders at the music festival. These are the ones who had solos, and then of course the band is there at the very bottom. Things that are coming up, KKF basketball tournament for 5th and 6th grade students. The teams are organized by PE, during PE class, Ms. Friesen does that, and then KKFs do the coaching, the officiating, scorekeeping, running the clock. And I think that's a very good experience for some of them as far as officiating goes, and then doing the things at the score table. We did have a couple of students last year who officiated the 2 days and said they would never do that again. It was one of the hardest jobs they've ever had. And they find out it isn't easy. And these are kids that play for us. You know, these are high school basketball players, and they find out it isn't easy, an easy thing to do. Kindergarten Roundup is on April 1st. We kind of vary on our numbers, 22 to 24. One thing that Fran was very good at was she always watched the birth announcements, and she put the kids on the list. Well, we've kind of lost contact with some of the kids that were on the list. We're not sure if they're still around. Mrs. Dryden is always a really good resource for that because she knows everyone. We're looking at Kansas assessments. The assessment window has been extended somewhat, and I think that was due to the missed school days, was it? Because of
Yeah, I think it was.
weather situation, having missed school days, so that's been extended. Our staff has been getting me the times that they're going to do their testing, and most of ours will be after spring break. That's when they're going to do those. And last thing, I don't have it on here, I just wanted to mention the PE program. It was held tonight, and Ms. Friesen always does a good job with that. Has the kids doing all kinds of activities, and it was good, as usual.
There were a lot of tears in the crowd tonight.
Not only in the crowd, some out on the floor. Thanks.
I gave you a sheet earlier. I just had a few items. The enrollment's been pretty steady at 137, 138 the whole year. The high school music festival, it was supposed to be tomorrow, and because of inclement weather that's forecasted for Ransom, that's been postponed, and we don't have any, we're still up in the air on the date, so we'll see when that takes place. It'll roughly the last weekend of this month, probably. I just put a few results of the kids that placed at the Academic Olympics in there. Like Mr. Lucy said, we just barely started the state assessments in a grade or two, and then we'll finish, most of those will be done after spring break. And then you have a copy of the activity account, extra places. Thank you.
I was wondering, what's going on with the Stuco deal? Kids, sponsoring stuff.
What's going on with the Stuco deal?
Yeah, with the TVs and stuff.
What, you mean what's going on with it as to
Well, I
now,
know,
or what's going on to it
yeah,
prior?
what's gonna happen with that?
What's gonna happen with the Stuco?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think the kids were talking to the Stuco sponsor today. I haven't talked to the Stuco sponsor since.
Could you characterize what the controversy is, what the underlying, why the petition's being circulated? And
Yeah, no, I don't understand the controversy. The controversy is that the sponsors, okay, when I asked them about if they were interested in donating money, they said, yeah, we're, without having the kids vote. That's the controversy with the kids. Yeah, so, but other than that, there is no other That's what they told me. That's what they told me when they when they gave me the petition. So, is that what you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing's gonna be done about it.
You mean as far as what they want is the money to return back to Stuco for the cost of one of the televisions. You know? And I haven't talked to the Stuco sponsor about that yet.
Is that money that students raise through?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the Stuco accounts and the KS account.
So do you see a problem with the students not voting on the money they raised? Or?
No, I don't have, no, that's why we have sponsors, they're adults, and if they thought there was enough money in there to do that, they wouldn't have done it if they didn't think there was a problem.
Well,
But,
that's not right in line.
but I mean, I understand that kids may be about voting, but it doesn't bother me that the sponsors that decided to use the money for that. It didn't bother me.
Well, they should ask the kids. I mean, it's their money.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that I'm right thinking that, it's just my opinion. I understand that the kids, if they thought they should have voted, that's fine, I have no problem with that. That's not a problem. But we didn't, and things were put up, so if we need to put money into the Stuco account, I haven't talked to the Stuco sponsor about it, to see how, to get to that point yet. I mean, it wasn't, this was done as something that would be positive for the school. It wasn't done to be, to go behind the kid's back or do something deceiving. That wasn't what it was about. It was just something that was, but we've been talking about for 2 or 3 years. We just had never done anything. And so the idea came up again, so we thought, well, yeah.
Yeah, but how hard would it be to call Stuco meeting or whatever to have them vote?
Yeah, they could have done that. Yeah, they could have done that.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's not right. I mean, it's be like Dr. Kenworthy going and putting in the bleachers without asking us. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't
I
know.
mean, they have a board and stuff. They need to.
It seems to me like that's the purpose of
Yeah.
student
Yeah.
council is to give him those
And
kinds
you're
of
trying to teach
experiences
these
to
kids on how to
evaluate.
do stuff, and that's it's not right.
Do we know what the outcome of the meeting was today?
No,
Okay.
no, I haven't talked to the sponsor. No. Yeah. But Bill, to answer, I mean, I will talk to the Stuco sponsor, and then we will just go forward with whatever direction we need to go at that time. Just to kind of give you an answer to your question, I mean, I just hadn't had a chance to talk to her today. It was kind of wild, so I just never got around to talking to her.
Good.
But I will, yes.
We finished up the ESL class for 4 consecutive Saturdays. We've had 19 staff meeting down here in the community room, along with 10 other individuals from surrounding districts who've been using our video teleconferencing equipment for the class. The instructor for the class was actually in Sublette. And this past Saturday, there were other classes also doing the same thing that were in Ashland and in Sabetha. And so it's been a really neat experience, I think, to use the technology that way that we've not been able to use before. We're hoping that we can expand that. This was kind of a partnership we did with ESDAC to be able to offer this. Our site here actually had the most students attending of any of the sites. Even the home site only had about 9 students in it. So it worked out really well. The only downside to it is, and Mrs. Benke can probably speak to this, is just the information overload. It is a huge amount of information that our staff is taking on. Probably about 2/3 of our staff are going to be taking their test this coming Saturday, and so we'll see how that goes. If they don't pass, we'll just pick them up, dust them off, and get them ready to take it again.
Where do they take the test here?
They have choices on where to take it, but it's not here. They can take it in Lawrence, Wichita, I think. I think there's only, might be Fort Hays also, I can't remember for sure. And then the other 1/3 of them are going to take it on April 30th, I believe. And there are several other sites there in addition to those, like McPherson and everywhere else. So, but you do have to go to a And it's-
Official.
Yeah, it's called a Praxis site, who does the testing stuff. So, it's a 2-hour test. It is multiple choice, but we've seen sample questions and they're hard questions. There's also a listening component as well, so you actually have to listen. So, but we appreciate all the effort our staff is making in doing that, 'cause it's a major undertaking, so. I did meet last Friday with 8 other superintendents from the special ed co-op. I think we may have shared the our last board meeting with the special ed director down at the co-op and submitted her resignation effective the end of June. And so the board down there has contracted with KASB to do the search for a special ed director. And they were getting feedback from superintendents. They also met with some of the certified staff and some of the classified staff to talk about qualities, characteristics you'd like to see in a new director. So that was a beneficial meeting as well. We are in the middle of the legislative season, and the last couple of years we have conducted what I call community forum meetings, and was wanting to do that again if the board doesn't object. We would look at some Saturday mornings and possibly some Sunday afternoons, depending on what is or isn't available. These are opportunities for the community to come in. We hold them here in the library. We give a short presentation just on where we're at fiscally, financially, and then also what some of the things are being discussed legislatively. There is another component of this that we would also be including when we did that. KASB has developed something, they're called community development groups. The purpose for them is one of the things that could be discussed that has not happened yet, but I think there's going to be legislation proposed that would be a constitutional amendment for the state constitution regarding education. Currently, the Constitution says that the legislature will provide suitable funding for education. That has been twisted a little bit, and now it's being called provide a suitable education. And so they're trying to, KASB is trying to collect from local areas what communities think is suitable for education. What programs do we have to have? What programs do we not have we'd like to have? What things are we currently doing that we feel like we shouldn't be doing or wouldn't have to do? And so that's what the purpose of these meetings would be to collect that information. We would then send it back to KASB. They would kind of compile it, and hopefully it would help provide the legislators with a little bit of direction as to what, if they're going to redefine what suitable is, as to what communities believe that would be. So, if the board doesn't have objecting, we'll look at hosting some of those here. Maybe one in the month of March and one in the month of April. Just to, if nothing else, just to educate the public about some of the things we're doing and get some feedback about things they might like to see us do differently. So, questions about that?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Board member reports. Mitch?
Nothing.
Bill? Carol?
We've already discussed that.
Barb?
I'm forgetting something, but there was one thing that I thought might be of interest to the school board that we've worked on in the economic development realm, which is that there's a bill going through the legislature that would create incentives to, for people to move to rural counties. Initially, Stafford County missed the mark just barely of the definition that they use to define these, as they call them, rural opportunity zones. But I went and lobbied, and we got included at this point. It's not passed into law yet, but one of the, probably the bigger things is that people who move to these counties from out of state would pay no state income tax for 5 years. So it would give us a nice little advantage versus Hutchinson, for example, in Reno County, which is not one of those zones and has some big employers going in, notably. It would give us a nice little recruiting point to locate a little further west. And, you know, it wouldn't take a whole lot of students to negate that $50 rescission, so I hope that that works in our favor.
I have nothing. So,
I maybe have one more thing. Mr. Bergen, did you receive a building use request today? You may or may not have, that's what I'm asking. You'd remember if you did.
Well,
Or maybe not.
it was yesterday, no, today's Monday, it was Friday, or, you're talking about,
Derek. Gray Best.
oh yeah, Teresa brought in, she just wanted something to add, she wanted to add a date to the calendar. She didn't actually have a building use because she had an orange sheet that added a date to the calendar.
Well,
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, she talked to me about that.
She was supposed to get a building use request.
Oh, okay, she
I'll
was
just
just,
tell the board.
okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Some of you may be aware we have a student, I don't know, Mr. Leslie, maybe you could describe Derek's disabilities.
Derek is, I'm not sure what the medical term is. Derek doesn't walk, doesn't talk. Very intelligent little boy. I'll give you some idea. I was over in Teresa's room. He works on a computer all the time, and he had never done multiplication. And he is second grade age, had never done multiplication, and they had a program that he uses on his computer, and it came up, and it just happened to be the threes, and it went through all of the, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, and so on. Went through all those times 10. And then it just, the screen just kind of looks like it explodes, and then the numbers go everywhere. And then over on this side, it has the 3 times 2, and he picks the 6 and puts it over there. It was just amazing to me. He just went through it once. Very intelligent little guy. Anyway, he has a lot of difficulties. There is I really can't explain it there. It's probably explained better on the information that he, there is a procedure that they are hoping that will get him to where he can walk and possibly talk. The procedure is something that it's not offered in the United States. They will be going to Germany to do this procedure. So that's what this is about.
And where it comes to our board for facility use requests, I've met with both Jill Rockenbaugh and Teresa Miller. They both are involved in this, not as employees, just as people in the community, but wanted to know how the school might be involved. And it's one of those things we have to kind of be careful because we have kind of a captive audience, and so we can't just, everybody that has some issue. But Derek is near and dear to our heart, and so one of the things that they wanted to do was, in the past, Lions Club used to do a pancake feed before the play in the spring, and they have discontinued doing that. And so they were looking at the possibility of doing maybe a pancake feed or spaghetti supper or something like that. So they would want to use the cafeteria. And so I didn't commit the board to this, but I said I would imagine the board would probably be willing to waive any kind of fees that we would normally have for something like that, to allow them to do that. And so, discussion in the board. There may be, you'll probably hear of other fundraising things. For example, there was a reporter here tonight at the elementary PE program from the Hutchinson paper, I think, and they're doing a follow-up story on a student who, in another district, who I think had this similar procedure with some pretty spectacular results. And they're going to tie that back to Derek, and we're hoping that with the website that they'll get some donations that way. But they're wanting to do it in a lot of different ways. So.
Yeah, I think there's a little boy in Barton County that had this done. From what Ken told me, he's done it pretty well.
I think you're Claflin, I think it's what he.
Maybe, I didn't know for sure, he just said Barton County, so.
Yeah. Is that one you live in Barton County?
Yeah.
I think that there's maybe one in Illinois as well.
Anyway, a
Anyway,
motion on it, or?
yes, that's how we normally do waiving fees for building use requests.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. President, we waive the fees for cafeteria and schools for any of Derek's fundraisers.
Second.
Move in second to waive the fees for fundraising efforts for this cause. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 7-0. Anything else? How much time do we need?
Session, 10 minutes.
Could we have a short recess before
Could you put that in your motion?
I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected, or I guess whatever, personnel issues, following a 5-minute recess.
Second.
To include who?
Superintendent.
It's been a motion to go executive session following a 5-minute break with the superintendent for personnel issues. All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 7-0.
I'd like to accept the resignation of Kurt Fairchild as junior high head boys basketball coach with our appreciation.
I so move that.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve Kurt Fairchild's resignation. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Opposed, same sign. 7-0. Future agenda items.
Possible bleachers, several things we discussed tonight.
Oh, I know the other thing I wanted to report on during, maybe a future agenda item, wind turbine update with the city and so forth.
All right, none. I'm here to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Moving second to adjourn. All in favor, please leave.